Stay calm. If you move now, you lose everything.
I almost flipped their table when I saw my wife kissing another man. But a stranger grabbed my arm and whispered, "Stay calm. If you move now, you lose everything." My name is James Anderson, and I've always been the kind of man who believes that if you show up, work hard, and keep your word, life eventually meets you halfway. I'm 39 years old, about 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered from years of physical work, with rough hands that never quite lose the feel of concrete and steel. I run a small construction business in Chicago, nothing flashy but honest. I don't talk much, not because I don't have thoughts, but because I learned early that words don't fix things, actions do. That belief came from my father, a quiet man who lost everything during the 2008 crash but never lost his discipline. Watching him rebuild from nothing shaped me into someone who doesn't panic easily. Or at least, I used to think so. That night, March 15th, was supposed to be different. 12 years of marriage deserved something more than routine. So I booked a table at Leclerc, one of those high-end restaurants downtown where the lighting is low, the wine is overpriced, and every detail feels intentional. I couldn't really afford it, not comfortably. I had taken out a short-term loan just days before, nothing huge but enough to sting. Part of it went toward a charcoal suit I was wearing that night. It fit well, sharper than anything I'd owned in years, but every time I looked in the mirror, I could feel the weight of the debt sitting on my shoulders. At home, before I left, my son Ethan stood by the door watching me. He's 9, skinny, restless, always asking questions faster than I can answer them. Messy brown hair, bright eyes, the kind of kid who doesn't hide what he feels. "Mom coming tonight?" he asked. I paused, adjusting my cuff. "She should be," I said, keeping my voice steady. Ethan nodded, but kids always know more than they say. He just shrugged and went back to his video game, like he didn't want to push it. On my way out, I ran into Mr. Collins, my neighbor. He's in his late 60s, thin, always wearing a worn-out jacket no matter the weather. Retired mechanic, the kind of man who's seen enough life to speak plainly. "You heading somewhere nice?" he asked, glancing at my suit. "Anniversary dinner," I replied. He gave a slow nod, then looked at me a second longer than usual. "Women like attention, James," he said. "You gotta pay attention or someone else will." I forced a small smile. "Yeah, I know. But the truth? I didn't think I had anything to worry about." By the time I got to the restaurant, the city lights were reflecting off the glass windows like something out of a movie. I checked my watch, 8:12 p.m. We were supposed to meet at 8. I sat down alone. The chair across from me stayed empty. I picked up my phone, and then her message came in. "I'm so sorry, I'm stuck at work. Big deadline tonight. I'll make it up to you this weekend. Happy anniversary." I stared at the screen longer than I should have. 12 years. And all I got was a text. I sat there longer than I should have, staring at the message on my phone until the words started to blur. Then I locked the screen, placed it face down on the table, and told myself something simple. "You're already here. Just eat and go home." The waiter approached, Daniel Reyes, according to the name stitched neatly on his vest. Mid-20s, lean build, sharp posture like someone who took pride in doing things right. His dark hair was slicked back, his tone polite but observant, the kind of guy who notices more than he lets on. "Will someone be joining you tonight, sir?" he asked. I hesitated for half a second. "No, just me." He nodded, but there was a flicker in his eyes. Recognition, maybe sympathy. "Of course, I'll take good care of you." I ordered a drink I couldn't pronounce and leaned back in my chair, trying to ignore the empty seat across from me. The restaurant buzzed softly with quiet conversations, clinking glasses, the low hum of jazz floating through the air. That's when I saw her. At first, it wasn't her face. It was the dress. A black evening dress, elegant, fitted perfectly at the waist, the fabric catching the light just enough to stand out without trying too hard. I knew that dress. I had bought it for her 3 months ago, after saving for weeks. She had stood in our bedroom, turning slowly in front of the mirror, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. "I'll save this for something special," she had said. Apparently, this was it. Emily Anderson, my wife. 36 years old, tall, slender, with long chestnut hair that fell naturally over her shoulders. She had a way of carrying herself, confident, composed, the kind of woman people noticed when she walked into a room. She wasn't loud, but she didn't need to be. She used to be warm, too. That changed somewhere over the last year. Work stress, she said. Long hours. Pressure. I believed her. I always did. She was sitting across from a man, Richard Coleman. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew his type immediately. Early 50s, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. His posture was relaxed, confident, the kind of man who had never had to question his place in the world. The kind of man who expected things, and got them. He leaned slightly forward, his hand resting casually on the table, too close to hers. Daniel reappeared at their table, setting down a bottle of champagne with careful precision. "Your usual Mr. and Mrs.?" he said with a polite smile. My stomach tightened. Mr. and Mrs. Not a question, not a guess, a habit. That meant this wasn't new. At a nearby table, just a few feet away from them, a young couple stood up. The man dropped to one knee, holding out a small velvet box. The woman gasped, hands covering her mouth, tears already forming before she even said yes. Applause broke out around the room, including from Emily. She clapped lightly, smiling, soft, genuine. The same smile she used to give me. Richard said something. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the way she reacted. She laughed, head tilted slightly back, eyes closing for a brief second. It was unguarded, real. I hadn't heard that laugh in months. Then it happened. She leaned forward, not hesitating, not checking her surroundings, and she kissed him. Not a polite kiss, not something accidental or ambiguous. A slow, deliberate kiss. The kind that doesn't ask questions, the kind that answers them. Everything around me went quiet. The music, the voices, the applause, it all faded into something distant and hollow. My hand tightened around the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched. My chair scraped loudly against the floor as I stood up. I didn't remember deciding to stand. My body just moved. 1 second I was frozen. The next I was already stepping forward, eyes locked on that table across the room. Every instinct I had, every ounce of anger, humiliation, betrayal, was pushing me in one direction. Toward them. I could already see it in my head. Grabbing the edge of their table, the sound of glasses shattering, her face turning from surprise to fear, his calm, expensive confidence cracking for the first time. I took one step, then another, and then a hand gripped my arm, firm, precise, not panicked, not weak, controlled. "Sit down." The voice was low, steady, almost too calm for what was happening. I turned sharply. The woman standing beside me was someone I had never seen before. Laura Bennett, late 40s, maybe early 50s. About 5'8", lean build, posture straight like someone trained to stand that way. Her dark brown hair was pulled back tightly, no loose strands, no softness to it. She wore a navy blazer over a crisp white blouse. Simple, functional, nothing decorative. No jewelry except a black watch on her wrist. Her face was composed, almost expressionless. But her eyes, sharp, gray, unblinking, were locked on mine with a level of focus that didn't belong in a restaurant. This was not a random stranger. This was someone used to control. "Let go," I said, my voice tighter than I expected. "Sit down first," she replied, not raising her tone even slightly. I pulled my arm back, but her grip didn't change. Not stronger, not weaker, just steady. "I don't know who you are," I said, "but my wife is over there kissing another man, and I'm not sitting down." She leaned slightly closer, not aggressive, not confrontational, just enough that I could hear her clearly over the noise of the room. "I know exactly who she is," she said. That stopped me, not the words, the certainty behind them. "I know who he is too," she continued. "And if you walk over there right now, you're going to ruin something a lot bigger than a scene." My jaw tightened. "I don't care about a scene." She held my gaze. "You will." Something shifted in my chest. Not calm, not trust, but hesitation. Across the room I could still see them, Emily laughing again like nothing in the world was wrong. I looked back at the woman. "Who are you?" I asked. She finally released my arm. "My name is Laura Bennett," she said, "and right now I'm the only reason you're not about to make the worst decision of your life." I stared at her, trying to read something, anything, in her expression. Nothing, just control. Outside the restaurant's glass wall, I noticed movement. A man stood across the street, partially hidden near a parked car. Mid-30s, average height, wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. He held a camera with a long lens, pointed directly at the restaurant, at their table. Click, click, click. I frowned. "Who is that?" Laura didn't even look. "Someone doing his job," she said. I looked back at her. "What the hell is going on?" She glanced toward the entrance briefly, then back at me. "There are 2 more cameras outside," she added quietly. "Different angles." My pulse slowed, but not from calm, from confusion. This wasn't random. This was planned. I looked again at Emily, then back at Laura. And for the first time since I walked into that restaurant, I didn't move. I slowly lowered myself back into the chair. Not because I trusted her, but because something in me knew whatever was happening right now was bigger than anger. Laura sat across from me in the chair that was supposed to be Emily's. She didn't ask. She didn't hesitate. She simply took the seat like it belonged to the moment. Up close, I could see more details. Fine lines around her eyes, not from age but from focus. The kind of lines people get from years of watching, analyzing, staying alert. Her hands rested calmly on the table, fingers still, controlled. No wasted movement. "You're not here by accident," I said. "No," she replied. "Neither is your wife." I exhaled slowly. "Start talking." She reached into her blazer and pulled out a folded document. Not dramatic, not rushed, just precise. "She's been seeing him for 16 months, Laura said. The words didn't hit all at once. They sank in, piece by piece. 16 months? I repeated. Yes. My mind started moving backward, flipping through memories like pages I hadn't realized were out of order. Late nights, weekend meetings, business trips that didn't quite add up. "She's not just having an affair," Laura continued. "She's being paid." That made me look up. "What?" Laura slid the paper toward me. $18,000 a month, she said, for 16 months. I stared at the numbers. $18,000 every month. That's over $288,000, she finished. My throat went dry. "From where?" I asked. "A shell company," she said. "Registered under one of Richard Coleman's private entities. No real operations, no employees, just a financial channel." I leaned back slightly, my chest tightening. A memory surfaced. Emily standing in our bedroom holding up a designer handbag I knew we couldn't afford. "It was on sale," she had said with a smile. Another one. A pair of heels. Jewelry. A watch she never wore around me but always seemed to have when she left the house. I had questioned it once. She brushed it off. "Bonus from work," she said. "You worry too much." And I let it go. Because that's what you do when you trust someone. Laura watched me process it, saying nothing for a moment. Then she added, "You weren't supposed to notice." I looked back at her. Clearly I didn't. She nodded slightly. "Most people don't." I clenched my jaw. "Why are you telling me this?" She leaned back just a fraction, still composed. "Because your wife isn't the only one involved," she said. "But for now, you need to understand this part." I glanced again toward Emily's table. She was laughing, like nothing had changed, like nothing was changing. "This doesn't make sense," I muttered. "Why would he pay her?" Laura tilted her head slightly. "Control, access, influence, take your pick." I ran a hand over my face. Then another memory hit. Samantha Reed, Emily's friend from work, early 30s, blonde, outgoing, the kind of person who says too much when she drinks. A few months ago at a small gathering she had pulled me aside. "You should keep an eye on Emily," she said quietly. I laughed it off. "What does that mean?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Just don't ignore things." I thought she was being dramatic, or jealous, or drunk. Now I realized she had been warning me, and I didn't listen. I sat there staring at the paper, the numbers, the truth laid out in clean, undeniable lines. 16 months, $288,000. Lies layered on top of lies. And across the room, my wife smiled like she had nothing to hide. I didn't look at them again. That was the first real decision I made that night. Not to stand up, not to walk over, not to let them see me. I folded the paper Laura had given me and slid it back across the table. My hands were steady now, not because I was calm, but because something colder had taken over. "What do I do?" I asked. Laura studied me for a second like she was measuring something. "Nothing," she said. "Not tonight." I let out a quiet breath. "That's it?" "For now," she replied. "You go home, you act normal, and you don't let them know you know." I nodded slowly, because suddenly I understood. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about control. I stood up, this time deliberately. No sudden movement, no noise. Just a man leaving a restaurant alone on a night that was supposed to mean something. As I walked toward the exit, I passed their table, but I kept my eyes forward. I didn't give her that moment. Outside, the cold Chicago air hit my face, sharp enough to cut through the noise in my head. I walked straight to my truck, sat behind the wheel, and just stayed there for a minute. Hands on the steering wheel, breathing. Not thinking about what I had just seen, but what I was going to do next. By the time I got home, the house was quiet. The lights in the living room were dim, the TV still on low volume. The babysitter had already left, just like we planned. I locked the door behind me and stood there for a second. Then I went upstairs. Lily was asleep. My daughter is 5 years old, small, soft features, light brown curls that never stay in place even when she sleeps. She was curled on her side, hugging a worn stuffed rabbit she's had since she was a baby. One of its ears is half torn, but she refuses to let it go. She breathed slowly, peacefully, untouched by any of this. I stepped closer, careful not to wake her, and adjusted the blanket over her shoulder. Then I moved to Ethan's room. He was asleep too, sprawled across the bed like always, one arm hanging off the side, his baseball glove still on the nightstand. He had asked about his mom earlier. I didn't have an answer then. I still didn't. I stood there for a while, longer than I meant to, just watching them. And that's when it hit me. Everything I did next was going to affect them. I walked back downstairs, slower this time. The house felt different, quieter. Or maybe I was just hearing things more clearly. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Emily and I had eaten dinner for years. I pulled out my phone, and I opened our message thread. I started scrolling. Back weeks, then months. The same patterns repeated over and over. Working late, meeting ran long, don't wait up. And then, the emojis. Hearts, smiles, little pieces of affection attached to lies. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. Then I locked the phone and set it down. Enough. I stood up, walked to the hallway, and closed the door to the spare room behind me. Locked it. Not to keep anyone out, but to create a space where I could think. I sat at the desk, pulled out a notebook, and started writing. Dates, times, things I remembered. Moments that didn't make sense before but did now. Every detail, everything I could piece together. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was building something. And this time, I wasn't going to miss anything. By morning, I wasn't tired. I should have been. I hadn't slept more than an hour. But something else had taken over, something sharper than exhaustion. Focus. I made 2 calls before 9 a.m. The first was to my office, telling my crew I'd be out for the day. The second was to Daniel Brooks. Daniel came highly recommended, one of those names people mention when things are serious. Divorce attorney, former military. Not loud, not flashy, just effective. His office was on the 18th floor of a glass building downtown. Clean, minimal, nothing unnecessary. It fit him. Daniel Brooks was in his early 50s, tall but lean, with a straight posture that hadn't faded since his military days. Close-cropped gray hair, sharp jawline, and eyes that didn't wander. When he looked at you, it felt like he was already 3 steps ahead of whatever you were about to say. He didn't shake my hand for long. "Sit," he said. I sat. "Start from the beginning," he added. So I did. I told him everything. The dinner, the kiss, Laura, the money, the timeline. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he leaned back slightly, hands folded. "Do you want revenge?" he asked. "Or do you want to win?" I didn't hesitate. "I want to win." He gave a small nod. "Good, because those are not the same thing." He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "What you have right now is suspicion," he said. "We're going to turn that into evidence." I slid the notes I had written the night before across the desk. He scanned them quickly. "Good," he said. "You documented early. That helps." Then he looked up. "But we need more." By the end of that meeting, I had a plan, and it was detailed. Daniel connected me with a small investigative team, discreet, professional, efficient. One of them I recognized immediately, the man outside the restaurant, Marcus Hale. Mid-30s, average build, calm demeanor. The kind of guy who blends into any environment without being noticed. Dark hoodie, neutral expression, eyes always scanning but never obvious about it. "Didn't expect to see you again," I said. He gave a slight shrug. "You weren't supposed to notice me the first time." That told me everything I needed to know. Marcus didn't talk much, but when he did, it was direct. "We've already got partial surveillance," he said. "Now we build the full picture." And we did. Over the next 2 weeks, everything changed. Not on the surface. At home, I stayed the same. Calm, normal, predictable. But underneath, everything was moving. We got hotel footage. The Jefferson Hotel. Multiple entries. Same room pattern. Time-stamped. We got receipts. Credit card records tied to Richard's accounts. We got messages. Carefully extracted. Not hacked. Legal methods. Patterns of communication that lined up perfectly with everything else. And then, the company. Daniel called me in as soon as they confirmed it. "Mercer Holdings," he said, sliding a file across the desk. I opened it. "This is where the money's coming from?" "Not directly," he replied, "but close enough." He tapped the page. "Layered shell companies, transfers between accounts, no real business activity." I looked up. "That's illegal." Daniel nodded once. "Potentially money laundering," he said. "At the very least, financial misconduct." I leaned back slowly. This wasn't just an affair. This was something bigger. Something that could collapse everything around them. Daniel closed the file. "Right now," he said, "we don't act, we build." I nodded, because now I understood the game, and I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. The papers were ready. Daniel didn't rush things. He never did. Every page, every clause, every line had been reviewed, cross-checked, and positioned exactly where it needed to be. "This is where it shifts," he told me, sliding the final document across the desk. "Up until now, they've been in control of the narrative. After this, they're reacting." I signed without hesitation. That same afternoon, everything began to move. Emily was served at her office. Mercer Holdings, 27th floor, glass walls, polished floors, the kind of place designed to impress people before a single word is spoken. I had been there once, years ago, when she first got the job. She had been proud that day. Now, it was where everything collapsed. According to Daniel's contact, the documents were handed to her directly in the lobby. She didn't scream. She didn't argue. She just stood there, frozen, reading the first page. And then, she looked up, straight toward Richard's office. That same morning, another process was set in motion. Margaret Hale. Late 40s, sharp features, composed demeanor. She carried herself with quiet authority, the kind that doesn't need to be announced. Formerly married to Richard Coleman, the woman who had hired Laura. She didn't contact me directly. She didn't need to. Her legal team filed a motion against Richard, enforcing a morality clause buried deep in his previous divorce settlement. A clause he never thought would matter. Until now. By the end of the week, the cracks started showing. Emily didn't come home that night, or the next. When she finally did, she didn't say much. Just moved through the house like someone who didn't recognize it anymore. Her appearance had changed. Still well-dressed, still composed on the surface. But something underneath had shifted. The confidence was gone. In its place, uncertainty. She avoided eye contact, avoided conversation, avoided me. That told me more than anything she could have said. Richard's situation unfolded faster. Daniel called me 3 days later. He just lost a major investment account, he said. How big? 8 figures. I let that sit for a second. What happened? Reputation, Daniel replied. People don't invest in instability. That wasn't the only loss. Within a week, 2 more firms pulled out. Not because they had to, because they chose to. Emily's fall was quieter, more controlled, more surgical. She wasn't fired publicly, no announcement, no scandal. Just a meeting, a closed-door conversation, and then, position eliminated. That's what the email said. No severance, no reference, just gone. The social shift came last, and it was the most visible. Emily had always been the one people liked, friendly, easy to talk to, the kind of person who fit into any room. But now, people were stepping back. Subtle at first, messages unanswered, invitations that never came. Friends who suddenly had other plans. Even Samantha Reed, the same woman who once tried to warn me, stopped reaching out entirely. Not because she didn't know what was happening, because she did, and she chose distance. I didn't confront Emily, not yet. That wasn't part of the plan, because this wasn't about one moment. This was about everything collapsing exactly the way it was supposed to. The final hearing lasted less than an hour. That was the part that surprised me the most. Months of preparation, evidence stacked in layers, every detail documented, every lie mapped out. And when it finally came down to it, the decision was clear. Daniel sat beside me, calm as always, a pen resting between his fingers. He didn't look nervous. He never did. That steady presence hadn't changed since the first day I walked into his office. Across the room, Emily looked different. Not just tired, smaller. She sat with her shoulders slightly pulled in, hands clasped tightly in her lap like she was trying to hold something together that had already fallen apart. Her hair was still neat, her outfit still carefully chosen, but the confidence was gone. Completely. When the judge spoke, there was no hesitation. Primary custody, granted to me. The house, granted to me. Financial assets, reviewed and redistributed. Final. No drama, no shouting, no last-minute arguments. Just the end of something that had been breaking for a long time. The first morning after it was over felt quiet. Not empty, just clear. Ethan was already outside by the time I stepped into the backyard. He had his baseball glove on, tossing a ball against the fence, catching it with that focused look he always had when he wanted to get something right. "Hey," I said. He turned, smiling slightly. "You coming?" I nodded, grabbing the extra glove from the porch. We played for a while without talking much. Just the rhythm of throwing and catching, the sound of the ball hitting leather, the occasional miss followed by a laugh. "Dad," he said after a few minutes, "you think I can make the team this year?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. "You keep showing up like this?" I said. "Yeah, you will." He nodded, like that was enough. Inside, Lily was in the kitchen, sitting on the counter with a bowl of cereal she wasn't really eating. Her curls were a mess like always, one side flattened from sleep, the other sticking out in every direction. She looked at me and smiled. "Best dad ever," she said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I let out a quiet breath. "Yeah?" I asked. She nodded seriously. "Yep." That hit harder than anything else had. Not the courtroom, not the evidence, not even the night at the restaurant. This mattered. Life didn't reset overnight, but it started moving forward. The house felt different now, not because it had changed, but because the tension was gone. The silence wasn't heavy anymore, it was just space. Work picked up. I kept things steady, focused. Routine came back, but it wasn't the same routine as before. This one was mine. That evening, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. I opened it. "You played it right." No name, no signature. I didn't need one. Laura. I stared at the screen for a second, then locked it. She was right. Not because I won, but because I didn't lose myself trying to fight it. I stepped outside onto the porch. The sun was setting, casting that soft orange light across the street. Inside, I could hear Ethan talking about baseball, Lily laughing at something small and unimportant. Normal things. Real things. I leaned against the railing and let the quiet settle in. A year ago, I thought control meant holding everything together. Now I knew better. Sometimes, it means letting things fall exactly where they need to. A year ago, I almost lost everything in one moment. All it would have taken was one step, one reaction. But I chose to stay calm, and that changed the ending. So tell me, if you were me, what would you do? Would you confront them right there, or walk away and plan your move? Would you choose anger or control? And if someone you trusted completely betrayed you for over a year, would you forgive or walk away for good? Drop your answer in the comments. I read them all. If this story hit you, like and subscribe for more powerful stories. The next one might surprise you.